tackle Shaq Thompson for a 3-yard loss.
Shaq busting through. My goodness. So what we see is North offense coming to fruition because Cam is actually a pocket quarterback. Who knew? Oh my goodness.
Tackles the Camry, busting through at the 30, 35, 40. Quick race down the right side. Here he goes at the 50, 40, to the Miami 30, 20, at the 10. A swipe with the ankles. They can't get him. Touchdown, Christian McCaffrey.
They can't get him. You can't catch Eugene Robinson anymore. He's no longer going to be calling the games of the team. But you can catch the C3 Panthers podcast every Tuesday night, live, 9 p.m., where we chop up the latest Panthers news and opinions from the fan perspective. I'm here tonight with Cody Lashney. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing wonderful, man. It's a Tuesday night, and there's nothing I love more than talking about Panthers football with my boy Tony Dunn on a Tuesday night. Tonight, Josh from Mass has jumped up from the chat room onto the show with us tonight to kick it and talk all things Panthers football, man. I'm stoked. Let's do it.
What's up, Josh?
Another Tuesday night, and trade some fools to Buffalo in the chat.
Yeah. All right, so my name's Tony Dunn. You can follow me on Twitter at @cat_chronicles. Go check out the C3 Panthers podcast on wherever you get your podcast. Subscribe. Go ahead and smash the thumbs up button if you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, Periscope. You can be a part of the conversation by calling to the Cat Calls line. The number's 252-228-5098. Thanks so much to the people supporting us in the YouTube chat right now. Susan Deans from Cabo. How about that? We're so cool that we even travel. It's a destination podcast at this moment. 10 Tizzy in the house, Underground West. Thanks for your support. Again, smash that thumbs up button. Be a part of the show using the Cat Calls line, or you can even jump in the podcast itself using the Shindig app or the link that's in the show notes. That's all we got there. All right. Tonight's show, guys, is the NFL Abstains from no one. We'll be talking we're going to talk a little bit about continued roster manipulation by Marty Hurney. We're going to be previewing Jonah Williams in a segment that we've been doing, that Cody's been doing for a while now, and that is better get to know a potential Panthers draft pick. It's a mouthful, but Jonah Williams will punch you in the mouth, and we'll preview him a little bit down the road, and also some political talk when it comes to the headquarters and some different things like that. But let's go ahead and get started, guys. First topic, the Panthers claimed a guy, Dillon Gordon, off of waivers. He spent last year on injured reserve, I believe, or was at some point found himself there. Undrafted kid from LSU, and I think he was with the Eagles. Offensive tackle, offensive lineman, another body in the stables there. Cody, padding the roster. These are some of the small moves that you can expect as we are getting prepared for the draft.
Yeah, I love it, man. And this is small moves that matter in the in the throes of summer during training camp. When you need bodies to be able to come in and fill spaces. Nobody was expecting Darrell Williams to go down as early as he did last year in training camp, and then Ross Cockrell, and then Denoris Searcy. You have to have guys that are willing to step up at a moment's notice, and especially when you know that you don't necessarily have a lot of depth at one position or another. Signings like these, while they might not generate a lot of buzz and notoriety amongst Panther fans, ultimately they matter. Maybe he'll never play a snap for the Panthers, or maybe he becomes a contributor. Maybe we see some stuff in preseason. Overall, I'm happy that we're still trying to fill positions of need out there before the draft happens.
Josh, there's going to be a lot of new faces on this team. I know that this is just an example of a guy that might just be on the team for 2 weeks and then be off the team with the next guy who hits waivers or wherever, next guy who's cut in the salary cap, and you're trying to get somebody. But when you go down to even the bottoms of this roster, there's going to be a lot of new faces in important positions, but we got to get to know a lot of backups as well. Talk about a little bit of that transition of this team, and how do you even assess something where you don't even know what you got?
Well, in this case, it's real hard because I didn't look into this kid too much, but it seems like he hadn't played any ball in the league. There's not a whole lot to be known about him, so at this point, like you guys said, you assume it's mostly a depth piece, a guy who, if he's there at the beginning of the season, if he's even still on the practice squad at that point, maybe he could be some depth in terms of somebody gets hurt, somebody goes down, because as we know, especially being Panther fans, the O-line you start the season with is not always the O-line you're even with 4 weeks in. So, we don't know the guy, but just glad to see Hurney still doing some work, still trying to get us something somewhere at least. Because if that's been the impression I've gotten big time over the last few years is that depth has been something we've really struggled with. So to see a little more come in is not a bad thing.
Yeah, I mean, what are we going to do without Amini Silatulu, Cody? I mean, I don't know how we're going to continue and carry on forward.
It's going to be rough, brother. I mean, Amini just did so much for this football team. A real pillar of strength in the locker room. Great guy, I heard.
There's but you're losing. You lose both Khalils. One is addition by subtraction, and Matt Khalil, who had been sent his walking papers. Ryan Khalil, though, big hole. You got to bring in. We bring in Paradis. We bring in. That's a new face and an anchor and a veteran there. Darrell Williams, kind of a newish face, just because we've never seen him that much of him. There's going to be some. Thomas Davis is gone. Devin Funchess is gone. There is not only is there this kind of natural change that goes on where these guys come and go and we don't get to know their names. They might not ever even see the practice field hardly. But there are also a lot of key positions that have big turnover here. The Panthers are trying to get ready for the draft. Marty Hurney says they're only like 40 or 50% of the way. Talk a little bit about how the team is going through that identity shift, Cody.
Well, yeah, I feel that this is it's a very interesting time to be a Carolina Panthers fan because there's so many unknowns, but when you factor in Cam Newton's shoulder and everything that's been going on surrounding him. And then now this very real specter that I feel has been kind of hanging over the entire team has been this move to a 3-4 defense, and how a lot of our moves have now been, well, maybe not all the way, but our, incorporating our 3-4 defense into what we do moving forward and how we want to be able to be versatile on the field and do a lot of different things. It really is a shift. There's a lot going on right now with the football team. And, I know I've been tough on Marty Hurney, and I still maintain I want to see him nail the draft before I pat him on the back and shower him in all the accolades. But I feel as though right now we're doing our best to build a pretty formidable offensive line. And I feel as though even in light of some comments going forward that we might even still do that in the draft as well. And I maintain, if you look at Cam Newton in 2015, when he had time to throw the football, he was the best player in the NFL, man. And if we're trying to move back to that type of offensive line, that type of team build, I'm all for it, 100%.
We need some of these guys to just be healthy, though. We need Darrell Williams to have a kick-ass. We need him to be better than good, and that requires him to be healthy. And if that's playing left guard and he is a better than good guard, then that's a success. If that's playing right tackle and he's better than expected at right tackle, there I don't think any way that he tries to play left tackle. I just think that would be a terrible mistake. But maybe I'm wrong on that.
Ron Rivera did mention that it's not out of the realm of possibility that Darrell Williams plays left tackle. This is coming from Ron Rivera. So take that for what it's worth.
I guess you could put the tight end beside him and just join him at the hip, Josh.
Jeez. Could we not? Could we not?
Yeah.
Greg's got enough on his plate this coming year, man. Like,
oh God, no kidding.
We just want Greg to be healthy and feeling well, and that little bone in his foot to just be the strongest little bone it can be.
Yeah.
There is a lot. There's some fear though that I have in getting too excited with any of these players who are coming off an injury. Now, I believe fully that the Paradis thing is something that's a easily or more easily healed injury than some of the other ones. So I'm not that paranoid about it, but there is some concern about any of these guys. Olsen and his durability or potential to finish out the season and get over that little bone. Darrell Williams with this continued knee problem, or this knee issue that was more serious than they wanted it to be. We've seen some of those things. Look, I mean, they said Matt Khalil was still getting over his injuries. By the way, Matt Khalil is now in Houston.
Poor Deshaun Watson, dude. How dare they? How dare they? That is so disrespectful.
That's terrible. That's terrible.
I feel like 2 weeks ago I was excited and I had given props to the Houston Texans general manager for saying Deshaun Watson's our guy. Not that he was thinking otherwise, but like he is the piece we believe that we have to build around going forward. And I tweeted like, this is such a good attitude. I think I pulled one of those snarky, if we would have felt this way about Cam, and we would have been like, we want to put these pieces around him. But then it turns out Houston, they were talking to talk, and then they pulled the Panthers walkout. Poor Deshaun Watson. I mean, he's going to have to be running for his life. And another guy that has had battles with injuries, getting beat up. Yeah. Matt Khalil is terrible, dude. He's terrible. What a con man, just raking in the millions from everybody.
And see, I wonder, you hear about like the Miami Dolphins and how they didn't want Drew Brees because it didn't pass physicals or whatever. Well, Ron Rivera, so for those of you that don't know, they did the NFL owners and coaches meeting. So all the coaches are pounding around and talking about stuff, but they're doing interviews. And Ron Rivera said that they weren't confident that Matt Khalil would be ready to go by the time training camp rolled around. So how is it that the Panthers were like, yeah, we're not sure, but the doctors in Houston were like, oh, yeah, we'll take a gamble on this and have you protect our franchise's blind side. Like, I don't understand.
Do you think it's injury? Do you think it's injury, the reason that the Panthers, or do you think that that's just him a little way to save face for everybody involved instead of saying we just think you stink?
Maybe a little bit of that. I'm sure there's some, walking on eggshells, being Ryan Khalil's brother. I don't know, man. I am a fan of the Panthers first and foremost, but I feel bad for Deshaun Watson. That's a rough one, especially after he had his ass beat last year.
This sounds kind of really bad, and actually, now that I even say it in my own head, it sounds even worse. But how people always say that they're rooting for someone to do pretty good. I hope he has a good career, or I wish the best. That's kind of what we said about Devin Funchess. I'm gonna be I don't wish him the best, Matt Khalil. And I feel like is that if he goes and plays good for anybody else, I'm gonna be so pissed. If he plays average for anybody else, I'm gonna be pissed because he was horrid for us. That was what a just mistake it was with them.
Man's a bum.
Let me.
Remember that footage that came out last year? I forget whether it was OTAs or training camp, was it we trained with like the Dolphins or something like that in the off season. I forget which team it was, but the video was on Twitter of Matt Khalil just getting pushed around left and right. And it's like, this is the guy. This is the guy keeping our biggest offensive investment safe. All right. Really? This the man? All right. Well, I'm sure we could find somebody at the senior center who could at least stay in the same place in the way for a longer period of time.
I mean, he was called Speed Bump by Cameron Jordan.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. What would piss you off more? If Matt Khalil protected Deshaun Watson at a high level, or if Devin Funchess just turned it on in Indianapolis and just became a dominant, badass wide receiver that we wanted him to be the whole time?
Khalil.
Man. Yeah, I think the Khalil thing would make me mad. It's like I feel really is that I was hard on Devin Funchess at times when I maybe shouldn't have been, and now I'm not, and I'm still, it's not. Khalil, I never feel bad about talking junk about that guy. Actually, I feel bad about not feeling bad. All right, you're listening to the C3 Panthers podcast. Thanks, Susan Deans from on vacation, checking us out in Mexico. Thank you for your support of the show. We appreciate it. Keep pounding. Be safe down there. From what I hear, rowdy, according to Donald. All right. So now let's get back on track. Marty Hurney, he says, look, there's lots of work to be done. But one of the things that of interest here is that Cody, so the moves he's made have been particularly strong for us in the position we were of need, in a way that we could have been backing into the draft with too many needs and having to feel like we had to do something, be forced into a corner. Right now, the Panthers have set themselves for some flexibility heading into the draft. Yeah, and we've done well for ourselves, and apparently we're not done. Marty Hurney is saying that we're only about 40 or 50% through the free agency process. And this is a little bit surprising to me because I don't necessarily know. I mean, I've heard, rumors there's a defensive tackle from Kansas City that we were looking at bringing in. But from the mouth of the man, Marty Hurney says we're only about 40 or 50% through the free agent process. So I'm curious as to know what that means and what other specific positions he is going to try and bring in before the draft. Because I really do feel that the objective right now is to be able to fill as many possible needs through free agency and then go into the draft, and whatever player you're in love with, whenever they fall to you, take them and not have to reach for a certain position. I know they'd love to have love, but we'll see where they go with that. You know what I mean? Because there is a person right now with Kyle Love who could potentially, I think, have a versatility enough on the defensive line that if you did put him in over center, he's a big enough boy to, if we tried to go more to that 3-4 look going forward. But now since this is we'll be watching. I've heard people pointing to Torrey Smith's contract. I think Cersei is another person. I don't know if we've parted ways with Cersei just yet officially. I don't believe so. So there are some small things that they might be able to do to move some stuff around. We'll be watching that. But really, the big storyline, or not story, is that you have some flexibility. I think Ron Rivera said this, is that it doesn't rule out us going offensive line in the draft, but doesn't force us to at the same time. So let's go ahead and jump into the segment. Get to better know a potential draft pick. Cody Lashney, who's up for us to preview this eve right here as I go down this old English pathway. I've got to stop. We are heading to London next year, but who we got this week is that could strengthen this team going into the 2019 season.
So we've been talking about the offensive line and how we're trying to fit players in free agency to be able to fill positions of need. But sometimes the best player available is a person that's going to keep your franchise quarterback healthy for the final 2 years before he needs a brand new contract. And we all know Nick Saban and the Alabama Crimson Tide, even though my Tigers beat them in the championship, they put out hell of NFL football players. So tonight, we are going to be previewing Jonah Williams, left tackle for Alabama. And the man's a beast. He's an absolute beast. And I don't want anyone to be under the emphasis that, oh, he has small arms. He has small arms. He's going to be taken advantage of. That could not be further from the truth. Whenever you have your feet underneath you and your elbows tucked in, when your positioning is on par, you really shouldn't have to worry about length when you know how to disengage the stab from the defensive end. Jonah Williams is never out of position. He sinks his hips well, and he is a people mover. I mean, the man moves people out of the way with effectiveness. He's able to swipe the hands down. A lot of the reason why people are saying move him inside to guard is that right there. His ability to move inside and go to the next level and attack linebackers on the second level to make running lanes for your running back is second to none. He moves very well, and he's a powerful man. For 2 seasons, he started as the left tackle for Alabama, and he was graded as the highest left tackle in college football by Pro Football Focus. The man's a mauler, and he doesn't want you to underestimate him. He wants to play left tackle on the NFL level, and I feel he has all the potential to do so. He's never truly been beaten outright, and even when he does, he recovers well, comes back, and gets his feet back under him. He has all the traits that you want in a starting left tackle. And I would love to have Jonah Williams for the versatility of being able to put him at left tackle or at guard, and he's a day one starter. I love Jonah Williams.
He looks mean, like a mean streak. Like he blocks with some toughness to him that I like. Now the arm thing is ridiculous. I would say it's ridiculous because we've seen so many of these guys who were top level prospects in the past who had those body types who have just been awful. Think of Eric Flowers, who is now with, who did he land with now? He signed with somebody recently, like not the Giants, somebody terrible he signed with. Is Eric Flowers still? He was playing with the Giants, then he was in Jacksonville, I believe. But you have guys like that. You have I'm trying to think of Cedric Ogbuehi. He came off an injury, but
Washington
these guys.
Redskins. That's what Eric Flowers.
Oh yeah, good luck with that. So you can over and analyze anything, but right now is that this is kind of like a guy. He reminds me a little bit of Scherf. Is that I know he's a guard or whatever his name, also a Washington Redskin, but. I feel like is, like you said, that plug and play. He's going to be in the NFL. What position he's at may be up for dispute, but he's going to be a successful NFL player. That's how I see it.
Yeah, and look, I look at it this way. Even if they love Taylor Moton at left tackle, which, hey, they might. I truly believe if it's a left guard or a left tackle, Jonah Williams is a day one starter and is going to be successful for a very long time. I mean, I was in the camp that we should not have let Andrew Norwell go. I believe in having a dominant offensive line. But now that he's no longer here, to have him be able to fill in at the left guard position, he's a versatile player, and you can put him anywhere on our offensive line, and we're better for it. So it's one of those picks that it might not be the flashiest pick of a defensive end, an edge rusher that everyone wants so bad. But this is a pick that makes us a better, more high-powered offense as soon as he steps foot on the field.
Any chance one of these guys that we've been talking about who would not be sexy at 16 but would be we've talked about Jonah Williams now. We've talked about who else? The center from NC State.
Bradbury.
Right. We also have talked about the who's the other guy that you've liked that's offensive lineman too that we've also shopped around here at 16.
Andre Dillard, the offensive tackle out of Washington State,
right.
is another.
So any chance any of those players slip to the second round where you trade right into an early pick?
It's so tough to say, man. Right now, this draft, I've seen players go anywhere from 7 in mock drafts all the way to the late 20s. So it's really hard to know. As far as the second round, there are players I haven't spoken about on the show yet that I like at with the 47th pick. But I don't know if Dillard or Jonah Williams.
Right. Those are long shots right there. But
there would have to be a video.
Always some surprises of guys who fall who are I'm thinking of like maybe Hernandez last year. Will Hernandez. Didn't the Giants get him kind of late? There was the other guy that the Patriots got. You just got to wonder if there's a guy sitting there early in the second, if you get aggressive there, if you missed it in the first. All right, Josh, what do you think right now? Jonah Williams continue to build that wall around Cam Newton, or do you think that, or do you want to see the Panthers do something a little different in that first round?
It's real hard to say because my instinct, particularly being a defensive guy, is get a DE, particularly because at least from what I've seen, the fall off in first round defensive end talent to the second round is a lot greater than the offensive line talent, at least in my opinion. That, and I think a lot of the upper crust O-line guys are going to be gone before we get there anyway. Unfortunately, I really think that's going to be the case. I think there's a good chance that all the standouts for both lines that we could be eyeballing, there's a chance that all of them could be gone by 16. You look at the needs that teams in front of us have, but again, the old homage, you draft the best player on the board. You try your best not to draft for need. But again,
there's always going to be something irrational too that happens in the draft.
You never know what's going to happen draft night. You could have somebody trading up to take freaking what's his face, Trubisky. My head just about fell off when that happened. I'm like,
right.
You traded up for him.
Something.
You probably could have waited till the third or fourth round to get him. Like like the coaches are all sitting in their war rooms going, I gotta get me some Trubisky tonight, but no, nobody was doing that. Come on, man.
They also said, too, you watch what other teams do and people get scared, like they get like mob fever or something. Like it's like they get influenced by the trends of the draft rather than what they wanted to do. I feel like teams did that with wide receivers last year. There's always something like irrational, then something that people didn't expect. And so you never know what you're going to get there. And next week will actually, if defensive end, like Josh is saying, is something that the Panthers, I think, which we all know is a very legitimate potential selection at 16. We're going to find out with Marcel Louis Jacques. I'm going to have to practice his name. Marcel Louis Jacques from the Charlotte News and Observer, right? From the Charlotte Observer. And he's beat writer for the Carolina Panthers. But he's going to help us look at some picks from Clemson. Why is that, Cody? Because I think he's got a little insight into that.
Yeah, he was a former beat writer for the Clemson Tigers. So, I mean, he's someone that knows a lot about Cleveland Farrell and Christian Wilkins and Dexter Lawrence, players that I know and love, and I think would upgrade our defensive line tremendously. And yes, I'm biased, but I also know that they're good football players. So, yeah, we're going to pick his brain. He's a great follow on Twitter. And I'm interested to see what he has to say on a number of different issues. So, yeah, that'll be fun.
All right, you're listening to the C3 Panthers podcast, where we chop up every Tuesday night, live 9 p.m., the latest Panthers news and opinions. Be sure that you turn your phone to portrait mode, smash that thumbs up button. Let us know that you're watching the show by participating in the chat room, following us on Twitter at @cat_chronicles. Send us an email, carolinacatchronicles@gmail.com. Subscribe, share the show with a friend. Let us know that you are enjoying this talk with us. And call into the Cat Calls line, 252-228-5098. All right, moving forward with some business. The Panthers finally started. It's like this giant discussion of having a bubble. The Panthers now have a bubble to practice in, which also seems like, I mean, obviously this is a short-term solution as the Panthers are making broader and grander plans. But the fact is that the bubble seems like something they should have done 15, 20 years ago. Cody, they've started construction. The Panthers will no longer have to practice in the ballroom.
No more ballroom. Yeah, and listen, I always imagine that's been kind of like a stand of embarrassment on the Panthers that, you know, all these other teams get to practice indoors when the weather gets bad. And yeah, we've made it work forever. But whenever the weather gets truly shitty here in Charlotte, yeah, we have to go to a ballroom at a hotel. It's just like, that's not what NFL teams do, man. Especially when you're looking at Dallas and the multi-billion-dollar facilities they seemingly have. They just have the world at their fingertips. And it matters, man, when you're able to, you know, it's a lot harder to throw the football and catch the football when it's raining and pouring down rain outside than it is when you're when you have a dome over your head. So this has been something very important to the Panthers organization for a long time. And it's just funny to me how we had Jerry Richardson for years as an owner, and it never dawned on him once that, hey, maybe this is something that we should do to benefit our team. I mean, David Tepper hasn't been the owner a full year yet, I don't think, or maybe it's around that point now, and he's already doing this. I love it. It's long overdue, and I'm happy it's happening.
Wah. Too soft to practice in a ballroom, too soft to practice in a giant bubble to protect you. You know who says wah? Matt Patricia. Matt Patricia says people who practice in ballrooms are too soft. Matt Patricia made his team practice outside, and they got a dome in the damn snow in Detroit. So Matt Patricia, I tell you this, is that Matt Patricia, he's a better man than a ballroom. He wouldn't practice in a ballroom. And now the Panthers don't have to practice in the ballroom either because now they're building the bubble. But the bigger story, though, has to do with the political talk surrounding the future of the Carolina Panthers when it comes to their team facilities, practice, stadium, potential stadium, new stadium in the long-term plans. You know that is being a chip that's been pushed around in the background that we don't know. Cody, let's go ahead and cue up a little bit about the discussion right now over some of these larger political questions related to the team.
Yeah, you know, I've talked to Cooper. I've been to a basketball game with him, and I've been with Masters. So we talked to both states. We're both, you know, a two-state team.
What's the realistic timeline for this? Not just legislation, but infrastructure, planning, location. It seems just such like a huge project.
Look, I mean, you have to, the way I view it as a whole region, okay? And I know that different people view it as this place or that place. To me, it's not. It's the development of a whole region and trying to make something bigger and better through both states. So, and we'll be involved in both states for different ventures, throughout time. Whether we're someplace in South Carolina, it's like Spartanburg or something, or Charlotte, or someplace else. We do view our fan base as, the broader region. And, I kind of think the way, when you look at the team, people should look at what economic development we can bring into the whole region.
Everybody with their hand out. Billionaire David Tepper with his hand out to all these politicians saying, give me the best deal. I don't care what state you're in. We're a powerhouse here in the region, and I'm worth $1 bazillion. So you got to listen to me. And then at the same time, the politicians are around him with their hands out at this moment. You know that there is some politicking going on. David Tepper, though, has a position of power, it seems, to where now I feel like North Carolina and South Carolina just have to give whatever they want, because these politicians know that that's money for them as well.
Yeah, and from what I'm hearing, it's setting up to be something of a bidding war between who will offer the most handouts for these practice. And I do want to make it a point to emphasize this. They're not just talking about practice fields. They're talking about businesses. They're talking about like tourist kind of attractions, strip mall type locations, food courts. They're talking about the whole 9 yards, something that would bring in a lot of people to wherever this is going to end up being in South Carolina or North Carolina. So from what I'm hearing, McMaster, I think, is the senator or something for South Carolina. He's been meeting with David Tepper a lot. They've already been talking. I don't know when it's going to happen, but the gears are in motion. And if I'm a betting man right now, I'm saying that somewhere in South Carolina, probably northern South Carolina, they're going to be building a brand new state-of-the-art facility for the Panthers and the surrounding area.
Josh, what do you think about sometimes you hear people say the NFL owners are some of the richest people in the United States. They're part of this Uber club that makes a ton of money. The NFL is remarkably profitable. And then they are able to then lean on local municipalities, cities for tax rebates, tax write-offs, whatever it is, tax breaks. Some people argue that if it is so profitable, why is it that they are also milking these towns for the best deal they can get? What do you think about that conversation?
Well, there's an interesting dynamic to that, because it just in what's being talked about as far as the Panthers, it's not just a practice facility. It's stores. It's like it's a mini mall. It's restaurants, probably a hotel or two.
Maybe a hotel tax.
Yeah, so that's just it. Is there's going to be all this sales tax generated from this. There's going to be income tax from everybody's paychecks that works there, all these employees. Not to mention, it's not going to be a ton of jobs, but it's going to be a decent little number of jobs that are probably going to pay a good bit above minimum wage. So that's why these teams look for these kind of deals, especially with stadiums. Because the stadium itself might not be a huge source of revenue, but for example, when me and my friend went down to Charlotte for a game last season, we bought gas around in the area. We stayed at a hotel in the area. We went to, probably 3 or 4 different restaurants, like at least 2 a day that we were there. We went to 5 or 6 local breweries down there. We got rides from a couple different Uber and Lyft drivers. So, I mean, the team drew in, just in me and one other person to the region, probably a good $500-600 Now, how many people are at the game every weekend, and how many people are in downtown spending money at places nearby? They're going to the bar before the game, and if it's an early game, then maybe they're going after the game. They're staying out, and then there's police details for getting people across the streets and blocking streets off and things like that. So you got to look at the broader picture of how it works out. There's give and take. So, I mean, it might be, well, we're looking for a tax break, or we're looking for you to pay for a chunk of the stadium. But if you isolate all the revenue that team brings every weekend that it's there, and look at really how long it takes the city to get that money back, I think it'd be really interesting, because it's not as long as I think people would seem to think.
I think Tepper is so shrewd too, in a way that he's going to be able to articulate and so well the financial growth that is going to occur. And so he's going to be able to say, this is why I don't think short term and money grab now, but lure all of this additional revenue. And he'll be able to explain it in a way that makes, everybody believe it, more so than I think when Jerry Richardson tried to do these types of things in a much smaller scale, is that it just seems like, oh, you don't want to pay for the upgrades. And it seems is that an inability to connect the message to the people. And I think Tepper has the ability to do that. I think he'll be able to outmaneuver these politicians. He seems like they have met their match. And I bet by the end he gets everything he wants. All right. Speaking of what you want, is you want to know everything about Cam Newton. And turns out we know a lot about Cam Newton, guys. We even know that my man, No Nut March, my man is no climaxing, sexual climaxing. I assume is he came out and said that no self-stimulation, no going to bluechew.com. Is there some, I do believe there's something here. Look, is that we know problems with his old lady. I wonder what this is all coming over in the Cam Newton makeover. Now you guys know, Josh, Cam Newton is not going to be getting his rocks off this month.
Oh man, I feel like somebody told him about No Nut November like 3 months late, and he's like, "That's a good idea." Like,
yeah.
And like before they could finish saying, "No, it's just in November," he's like already like, tied his hands behind his back, like, I ain't doing it. So I mean, hey, more power to him. Not everybody needs to be Phillip Rivers, I guess.
Yeah, who just had his ninth child, by the way.
Yeah.
Good God.
But, it was interesting. Was it on? I can't remember where it was. Somebody was interviewing Mike Tyson recently, and they asked him about that, like the whole no sex, whatever, before a fight. He goes, "That's nonsense." He straight up said, "That's nonsense." But
That's nonsense. I mean, oh gosh, there's a lot of bad things that are going to come from the Mike Tyson talking about sex.
That's nonsense. But I mean, to each their own. If he thinks it's going to make him better, if it's going to allow him to focus more on his shoulder or his workouts or being a damn vegan,
it will give his shoulder some relief.
Yeah.
A lot of relief and no relief at the same time.
Cam Newton. We can't get it, man. We know everything about this man.
Yeah, we do. But, he also Josh brought up a good point. I don't know if he's spoken about it yet. My man's a vegan now, man. No meat, no fish, no dairy products, no nothing. And I am not an expert on diets, but I don't know, man. It just seems like every vegan I meet, they're always like one sneeze away from throwing their back out or something like that, man. They're not the healthiest people to me.
We'll see. He's given up, I think, a little bit more context to the story, too, is that he was explaining that he's sacrificing. He's giving kind of like Spirit of Lent. He's giving up something new each month. One was like he gave up meat, like you said, or was vegan. Now it's this, is that he's giving up these things. Hopefully he'll give up injuries for this upcoming season. But yeah, I mean, this is just Cam Newton, part of his character. And I guess you would say is actually, I feel like this is that we're also, this is the Tepper effect, dude. Imagine Cam Newton is that all of this is that Cam Newton does seem a little bit more relaxed now that Jerry Richardson is gone. And I don't know, is that we got nothing to talk about. Cam Newton giving up something each month. So we've talked team headquarters, we've talked the bubble, we've talked Cam Newton's abstinence, and that's about it, man. You guys got any? Oh, no, Cody, the rule changes. There's been some rule changes. One of them is being that they will now that they can review some penalty calls and missed penalty calls. One that I saw highlighted was pass interference, likely brought on by that play from the Rams against the Saints, where it was clearly pass interference and they just didn't throw the flag. Now those are going to be reviewable by challenge or by official booth review at times. How do you see this fitting into the continued changes to the NFL rule scheme and replay that is always a nightmare, it seems like?
I mean, listen, I know this is something that is basically came from the whole Saints debacle in New Orleans about the no call. And I mean, listen, while I'm not ever sympathetic to the Saints, I do ultimately think this is going to be a good thing. Having a game ruined by a stupid call. I mean, everything else is reviewable. It just makes sense to me that flags should also be reviewed. I mean, sometimes the referees, they just miss. And there's egregious calls that go one way or the other. So I'm happy about it. I like it. I see no problem with it. It's one of those things where now the referees calling dumb flags isn't going to hurt you or help you either way. So the game will be called more fair, which, I guess I'm in favor of.
Any thoughts on the rule changes, Josh?
I mean, I'm in favor of keeping the game fair. I think we all are. We all want this sport, whether we're, like me when I was younger, I played football, or if you're just really a big fan and you just want to see a quality product out there and you want to see the rules enforced, because if they're not enforced properly, what the hell are you watching? What the hell are we doing? I do have concerns about it turning into kind of a fiasco. I mean,
they should almost just pass a rule that says this is anytime that we feel that there is some egregious and obvious blunder, that we have the ability to intervene as the NFL, like to the point of we don't need to define every single play is that every single play could be under the most extreme circumstances reviewed. But not challenged. Like the NFL could almost take this away from. Why don't they take some of this away by not forcing the coaches to challenge things? But like, why can't the NFL just say you can challenge more things? A, but B, in the background, we always are going to have like an official NFL challenge that could be thrown out there on anything to protect the integrity of the game. Maybe that's too broad, but I don't think they would use it that much.
No, and there's times, I mean, think about, all the games that are in a year and how many times something happens within that last 2 minutes of a half and nobody can challenge. And maybe it's not the most egregious thing out there, but it's like, it should probably at least be looked at. And the team's allowed to just run up to the line and snap the ball and, it's too late. It's like, well, that's the rules. That's the breaks, but maybe that shouldn't be allowed to be that way. It's like if something fishy's going on and everybody's like starting to, the offense is really starting to hustle towards the line. It's like, all right, well, maybe somebody's trying to get on, get one over. Somebody's trying to get away with something. But again, my only real fear is that it just turns into this whole debacle where it causes even more of a controversy. It causes an even bigger, crap mess. I mean, obviously nobody, none of us are Saints fans here, but you don't want to see a team get done like that. You really don't, because it could be us. And I think there's times where in the past, not as bad as that, but we have been on the bad end of some luck, some questionable calls or non-calls. So, you don't want anybody to get screwed. But then again, it was the Saints, so I don't care anyway.
Yeah.
All right, you're listening to the C3 Panthers podcast, brought to you by CarolinaCatChronicles.com. We got one last segment to get into, and that is our ice up picks of the week, where we tell someone to ice up, toughen up to get it together. And Cody, is that I will go first because mine is nothing special. I've got a short two-part one. The first one goes to, I am gonna ice up the Mueller investigation and all of the politics surrounding all of this, because first of all is that I've been quick to ice up Donald Trump incessantly on this podcast, and then you really don't see anything come out of this entire thing other than what seem like some process crimes when it comes to maybe when it comes to finances, guys breaking other rules that they found out. I just wonder if this just kind of adds to the crying wolf can have a lot of negative impact on you, particularly maybe if this is the Democrats, maybe whoever, not Trump, that was yelling this. A little cry wolf syndrome can get you the opposite results. So I'm going to say ice up to that. But really, I haven't followed it as much, so I don't have anything good to say other than I just feel like I need to do that. My real ice up pick, guys, goes to, I've been listening to books on tape recently just because I got this app from my library, and these people with these wonderful, beautiful reading voices reading these like science fiction books or murder mystery, whatever. But you hear this man that's got this wonderful like news anchor type voice, and then when they switch characters from like the main protagonist, male usually perspective, to like maybe just like a female character or a child, they try to alter their voice to make it like and I don't know how I feel about it. Like, I feel like I understand that you need to try to change your voice intonation because you're trying to signal that you're changing perspectives in the book, but it sounds so ridiculous at the same time. So manly, beautiful narrators imitating female voices unnecessarily, ice up.
Ice up. Yeah. You have an ice up pick, Josh, or you want me to go first, or you want to jump in?
Yeah, I actually got one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Kind of the same, well, not kind of the same vein. The prosecutors in Chicago on the Jesse Smollett case, they make this big deal about it all, and it's faked, and he faked it, and he lied, and all this. And they go forward with like this whole proceedings, and then today it's just all just dropped. It's like, what do you mean it's dropped? And it's the whole thing, at least to me, just stinks. Like somebody paid somebody to make something go away because young man did something dumb. So that's my ice up pick is the Chicago prosecutors. Man, you can't. Racism is a terrible thing, and it's sad that it's still around in our country. And the last thing we need is people faking it for whether it's their own fame or attention or whatever. It's just part of it. It's part of that whole thing that just doesn't have a place here. So they got to ice up. I wish I had names, but I haven't found any because I haven't dug too much because it's just
because
terrible.
We're tired of Usay Smollett. We're tired of Jesse Smollett and the whole dang story. Is that, and then you're right. It's like smoke and mirrors. Is that like we're gonna make a bit like, and then it all goes away. I'm glad that when it will go away from this show. So ice up Chicago, not known for, not many times have their prosecutors and their their Justice Department in Chicago gotten a lot of positive accolades, so they're used to the ice up. Cody, what do you got for us?
Yeah, so people don't like us going political, and I understand we're talking football, but I don't really view this as political. I view this as there's a way to argue in favor of the things that you believe, and especially when you're trying to disprove something, and there's a way that you don't do it. Now, this is just me personally. You can love it or hate it. I am a huge believer that man-made climate change, when you have 7 billion people on the planet, is a real thing. That's something I believe in. But if you're an elected official and you're in front of the Senate or whatever, and you're advocating on what to do instead of fighting against climate change or enacting a legislation, it's important that you have a good argument. And this representative had the most stupid, absent-minded argument against climate change that I've ever heard.
The courage needed to solve climate change is nothing compared with the courage needed to start a family. The true heroes of this story aren't politicians, and they aren't social media activists. They are moms and dads. And the little boys and girls that they are at this very moment putting down for naps or helping with their homework, building tree houses and teaching them how to tie their shoes. The planet does not need for us to think globally and act locally so much as it needs us to think family and act personally. The solution to climate change is not this unserious resolution that we're considering this week in the Senate, but rather the serious business of human flourishing. The solution to so many of our problems at all times and in all places is to fall in love, get married, and have some kids. Thank you, Mr. President.
So there you have it, folks. Hey, it doesn't matter that the sea levels are rising, the ice caps are melting. None of that matters, dude. None of that matters. The only thing that you need to do is do like my man, Phillip Rivers, and pop out 9 or 10 children. And hey, man, you're solving the problem, dude. You're basically like a planetary wizard when you're popping out your babies. Listen, man, this is just the dumbest shit in the world to me. If you want to be against something, at least try and come with some facts and not just some family values BS that has nothing to do with what we're talking about. So I'm not even going to say this dude's name. To whoever this asshole is, ice up, son.
Well, I'm going to say his name is me and Mike Lee and I. His name is Mike Lee from Utah. We were on a bender the night before, and we were throwing back shots. We were having a good time, and then he goes, "Oh crap! I got a presentation tomorrow in the Senate." And I'm like, he didn't know what it was about. He was like, "I got this. I'm just gonna put this picture of a baby of these babies up and talk about how families in America are fantastic, especially when they live in tree houses like that Swiss Family Robinson in Disney World." That's what we came up. That was our plan at 4:30 in the morning. Baby picture. It's gonna win them over, dude.
Jedi George says Cam not climaxing is causing climate change. You know what? It might be true. There you go. Jedi knows.
That was his plan. That was his suggestion, Mike Lee, when we were on the bender. He said, "I think I'm going with the babies instead." Right.
Yeah, right.
That's awesome. That's what, you know what? That's the job we need. The job we imagine if we didn't. I mean, we at least prepared a little bit for our podcast tonight.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? My man just went into work and was like, "I ain't got nothing. I'm just talking about these baby stuff."
Babies, don't save us all, man.
All right. That's the C3 Panthers podcast. My name's Tony Dunn. You can follow me on Twitter at @cat_chronicles. Cody, where can they get after you before next week? Actually, the plug, Marcel Luis Jacques, Charlotte Observer beat writer, going to help us with Clemson. So be sure to tune in next week. Cody, how can they follow you until then?
At CODYLAC on Twitter. When I'm not starting debates with people online, I'm talking about football. Tomorrow there is a brand new mock draft for drafttech.com. The comments are back. There is a full description for the round 1 and round 2 picks for the Carolina Panthers on drafttech.com. Be sure and check that out. Show some love. Tell me what you think about the drafts that we're putting out. And that's it, man. Another Tuesday night in the books.
Josh, you're on Twitter now, aren't you?
Yeah. No, I got back into my account like 2 months ago, something like that. You get at me, LSC50HH. And talk cars, talk football, talk girls, whatever the hell you want to talk. We talk it. Video games, I don't care. Whatever it is.
If not, we'll mute you. All right, man. That's fantastic. Thanks for dropping in the show tonight. It was a blast hanging out. And, guys, we'll be back next week. We got a lot to talk about. I'm sure there'll be plenty of news. Cody, we're excited to get see some of those big Clemson boys coming after the quarterback. And that's it, guys. And be sure to keep pounding.